And we have to begin with defining what do we mean by Pax Judaica? What is the explanation from Islamic eschatology of Pax Judaica? What does Islam have to say on the subject? It is regrettable that I am the solitary voice in the whole world of Islamic scholarship addressing this topic. An inexplicable incapacity of the scholars of Islam to embrace the topic, a reluctance to embrace the subject. And as a consequence, mine is a lonely voice, but never mind. We thank Allah for the chance to explain the topic. Pax Judaica comes after Pax Americana. And Pax Americana came after Pax Britannica, and this is Britain. So there is three parts of this Pax, meaning a country which seeks to rule, establish its rule over mankind. A kingdom or a state that is incomparable, cannot be compared by any other, cannot be threatened or rivaled by any other. From where has this come? Answer: when Nabi Dawood alayhi salam, the prophet David, established from the seed of Abraham, Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, a kingdom, a great kingdom. The Quran refers to it as a great kingdom. Then his son, Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, took that kingdom or that state to make of it a ruling state in the world. There can be no rival to holy Israel. No one can threaten holy Israel successfully. And Sulaiman alayhi salam prayed to Allah. And he said, وَهَبْ لِي بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَهَبْ لِي, and grant me, mulkan la yanbaghi li ahadin min ba'di. Grant me a kingdom that cannot be compared, none can compare with it. That is in the Quran. So the concept of a pax, this or that, a state which rules the world, is there in the Quran. And if someone wants to replicate that holy state, they will have to establish a holy state of their own. And that is what the false Messiah wants to do. He wants to establish a state of Israel in Jerusalem, which will rule the world. That is not so difficult to understand. Even someone with only peanuts in their head could understand that. But he has to be able to proceed to the establishment of a bogus holy state in Jerusalem in a stage-by-stage process. And we turn now to the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam in Sahih Muslim, known as the hadith of Tamim ad-Dari, with which you're all familiar. And our Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, prophesied, prophecy, that when that false Messiah, Dajjal, al-Masih al-Dajjal, who is going to appear as a human being, remember that, a human being. Human being. When the false Messiah is released into the world, he will live on earth for 40 days. And if you study the Quran carefully, you will understand that 40 is not to be understood literally as 39 plus 1. No. That there is a sacred numerology which has to be interpreted because it is symbolic in nature. So 40 is not 39 plus 1. All right. Having disposed of that, he will live on earth for 40 days, one day like a year, yawmun kasana. One day like a month, yawmun kashahr. And one day like a week, yawmun kajum'ah. وَسَائِرُ أَيَّامِهِ كَأَيَّامِكُمْ. And all his days. I'm grateful to Dr. Israr Ahmad, Rahimullah, who remind me, Imran, it's Sa'iru Ayyamihi, all his days. Dr. Israr was reminding me. And all his days, because I was saying all the rest of his days. So Dr. Israr corrected me. وَسَائِرُ أَيَّامِهِ كَأَيَّامِكُمْ. And all his days like your days. So when he is at the end of his mission, he will be located in our world of space and time. So we can see him. At that time, our Prophet said, Allah's blessing be upon him, he will be a Jew. And he would be a young man. And he'd be powerfully built. And he'd have the sideburns, which the Torah requires of the Banu Israel. Last 3 days ago, I had a session in Wembley with 2 rabbis. A very beneficial session with the 2 rabbis. And they both had their sideburns on the side, yes. But before he appears in this world, there are certain things that are going to happen. And you are familiar with the hadith of Mu'az ibn Jabal, in which our Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him, gave us a timeline of events which will culminate with Dajjal appearing in human form. He said when Jerusalem is center stage in the world, which is it today, at that time Medina would be in forlorn desolation, which is it today. At that time, the next event to occur would be the Great War, the Malhama or Armageddon, which is around the corner. I suspect that as the Western world recognizes that Ukraine is losing the war and Russia is winning the war, which is not long from now, then in order to save themselves from the embarrassment of losing a war to Russia, they would trigger off the Great War. So that could be just another year or 2 years from now, but I can be wrong. After the Great War, said the Prophet ﷺ, one hadith says 7 months, another hadith says 7 years, but Abi Dawood says I prefer the 7-year hadith. After the Great War, the next event would be the conquest of Constantinople. And I have suggested that the reason why a Muslim army will conquer Constantinople, not a Christian army, is because we have to correct some of the wrongs of the Ottoman Empire. Our people are so totally brainwashed, Turkish people in particular, and the people of the Balkans, in admiration for the Ottoman Empire, which did some good. But when the Ottoman Empire did something which was evil, they don't want to hear about it. And the Ottoman Empire waged bogus jihad on the Orthodox Christian world for 600 years and left behind a legacy of bitter hatred for Islam. Bitter hatred for Islam, yeah. And the Ottoman Empire took Constantinople in a manner that violated Allah's command in the Quran. And then the Ottoman Empire took Hagia Sophia and converted it to a masjid in conflict with Allah's command in the Quran. So when a Muslim army conquers Constantinople, my opinion is that we will then return Hagia Sophia to those to whom it rightfully belongs. But again, I am a solitary voice. Nobody's prepared to stand up to support me. And when we return Hagia Sophia to that Orthodox Christian world, which is led by Russia today, that would cement the friendship and alliance between this Ummah and the Ummah of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, which will fortify, that's how the lecture is going to end today, a macro response to Pax Judaica, in contrast to a micro response. That's how the lecture will end. The Prophet ﷺ then said it is after the conquest of Constantinople that Dajjal will be released. So before Dajjal is released into the world, and he lives in our world of space and time, there are three parts of his mission on earth. A day like a year, a day like a month, and a day like a week. But there is something in the Quran which compares to this, comparable to it. It is in Surah Al-Mursalat, and Allah says, Intellico. There are two intellicos in this surah. And they are meant to direct attention to those who reject the truth. Proceed now. Intellico ila zillin. Proceed to a shadow. Zi salasi shu'ab, which comprise of three parts. There are those who hold the view that absolute truth is not located in the Quran alone. They are a misguided people, and they'll pay a price for their misguidance. They hold the view that hadith, which is sahih, has the same status as the Quran, which is false. They hold the view that seerah, which is accepted as valid, has the same status as the Quran. So if the seerah says that a pious man, a pious king, that's how our prophet described him. He deceived his own people with a deception. If they ever got to know what he did, they'll curse him. They'll go to his grave and curse him until Qiyamah. If they get to know what he did. It's there in the Sirah. That the king wrote on a piece of paper that he believed that Jesus is the servant of Allah, the messenger of Allah. And he put it underneath his clothes. And then he asked the people, what do you say about Jesus? And they said, we worship him as the Son of God and the second person. He says, I believe that. And he put his hand on his chest here. Meaning, I don't believe in what you said. I believe in what I've hidden here. And our people who have nothing in their head but peanuts accept that story. Say, no, this has the same status as the Quran. And when the Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, performed the Salatul Janazah for that king, all of them, he's a Muslim. He took the Shahada. They only have peanuts in their head. This is us, Islamic scholarship today. And then there are people who declare that whatever is in the tafsir has the same status as the Quran. No, that's false. Only the Quran has absolute truth. Why is it that a man who never studied in a Darul Uloom, a philosopher named Dr. Iqbal, why is it he has to teach you how to study the Quran? And you follow this bogus methodology. Absolute truth is only in the Quran. And the Quran has two kinds of verses. It has those verses which are muhkam, plain and clear. No need for any interpretation. But there are other verses in the Quran which are mutashabihat. And Allah says in the Quran that you have to interpret these verses. If Allah said this, He meant that. That is ta'wil, interpretation. But Allah says only Allah can confirm that an interpretation is correct. But that does not mean that we're not allowed to interpret. But whoever interprets the Quran, even if your name is Ibn Kathir, whoever interprets the Quran must say Allah knows best. Allah knows best. Even if you're an ayatullah, Allah knows best. You can be right and you can be wrong. And until Qiyamah, we have the right to interpret the Quran. No. Allah never said in the Quran about the 3 parts of the shadow that this is Dajjal. So Imran Hosein is wrong because we don't find it in the tafsir. This is Islamic scholarship that has become prisoners of tafsir, cannot think outside of tafsir. So I have attached this verse of the Quran. In Tadiku, proceed to a shadow, zi salasi sharab, which is comprised of 3 parts, to that hadith of Tamim Mudari, that when Dajjal appears, he appears in our world, he is released in our world, he will proceed in his mission with first 3 parts, after which he'll appear in our world of space and time. Good. So I have interpreted the 3 parts of the shadow with a day like a year, a day like a month, and a day like a week. What I'm doing now is explaining what do we mean by Pax Judaica from the perspective of Islamic eschatology. I'm sorry to be taking so much time, but I warned you it's not going to be a short lecture. Now then, I have offered the view that when the first part of the shadow is finished, and the second part of the shadow is finished, and the third part is finished, then the shadow will disappear. And then Dajjal will appear in person. So before Dajjal appears in person, which is after the conquest of Constantinople, you can't see him. No, he's a shadow. But Dr. Israr Ahmad, I again refer to Dr. Israr Ahmad rahimahullah, who said something beautifully. I loved it, what he said. He said, coming events cast their shadows before them. Beautifully spoken, beautifully spoken. Coming events cast their shadows before them. Okay? I am not Brelvi. I am not Deobandi. I am not this and that and the other. So don't bring your sectarianism to me. I want to praise a scholar. I praise him regardless of what he is, because the man spoke beautifully. Now then, I have also come to the conclusion that when Dajjal was in his first stage of his mission to eventually rule the world from Jerusalem, from what would appear to be a holy state of Israel as a ruling state in the world, Dajjal created modern Western civilization. This is the civilization of Dajjal. The Prophet said that Dajjal has the word kafir written on his forehead. And I said this civilization has the word kafir written on its forehead. And there are many. Not the ones who migrated from Pakistan to come to Britain. No, the ones who were born here. The ones who were born here and who've seen Britain, who will agree with me that this is a civilization which has kafir written on their forehead, on his forehead. And this civilization then gave us Pax Britannica. Mysteriously so, a ruling state in the world. I don't have the time to devote to explaining Pax Britannica because you can do that research yourself. And then I found that Pax Britannica had an obsession. Britain had an obsession. You know what's an obsession? And the obsession was the Holy Land. And that obsession culminated with the Balfour Declaration. And the British Army then conquered Jerusalem. And Britain then became the mandate state, taking control over the Holy Land given to them by the League of Nations. You should do your homework and get all of this history. And then Britain ruled over Jerusalem and the Holy Land from 1917 until 1948. And then Britain presided over the birth of the baby, the state of Israel. An obsession with the Holy Land and supporting the Holy Land. And then came a moment in time when power had to move. Britain had to go into the sunset, Pax Britannica. And the new Britain is a shadow of the old one. And then came Pax Americana. But Pax Americana not only rules the world, the way Britain ruled, and the US dollar now becomes the world's leading currency like the British pound used to be, but the United States also has the same obsession with Israel. And we say that Dajjal is now in the second stage of his mission. But I've been saying this for 25 years now. I wrote Jerusalem in the Quran 25 years ago. And the world of Islamic scholarship refused to respond to my book. Incapacitated. I don't know what's wrong with them. They refused to respond. They just remained silent. This was 25 years ago. And then I said that Pax Americana cannot remain forever, not even with Donald Trump, who wants to make America great again. Meaning he wants to restore Pax Americana. That's why the American warships are now off the coast of Trinidad and Tobago from where I belong, because they want to bring regime change in Venezuela, flexing their muscles. This is Pax Americana. But Donald Trump cannot do it. The US dollar is now in intensive care unit in the hospital. It's on life support. It should have collapsed long ago. Yeah. And they know it. It's a bogus system. A bogus, fraudulent monetary system which has been used to rob mankind of their wealth. So it's blood money they have. So what comes after Pax Americana, which is the new ruling state in the world, which will be the third of the three parts? My answer is Israel. And my answer makes sense because Dajjal wants to declare himself the Messiah from Israel. But if you say, no, it's China, no need for any boxing match. That's your view, and that's my view, and Allah knows best. This is a brief explanation of the term Pax Judaica. Good. If I am wrong, I have to speak on this lecture very carefully, because this lecture is going to reach around the world. And I don't have any shortage of critics. Not at all. The Salafi consider my methodology to be a threat to their whole Salafi world. The Sufi are annoyed and angry. Why does he not say he's a Sufi? Because his teacher was a Sufi, Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari. And his teacher, Maulana Muhammad Abdul Alim Siddiqui, was a Sufi. And Maulana Muhammad Abdul Alim Siddiqui was a Khalifa of that man, Ahmad Raza Khan Barelvi. So how come Imran does not identify himself as Sufi? Answer, I consider Tasawwuf to be the very heart of the deen. The very heart of the deen. And I define Tasawwuf as being able to see with the internal eye. That is Tasawwuf. But I don't want to defend any Sufi practice, religious practice, which is not based on the Sunnah. So I save my time. I have no shortage of critics. So my question to them is, if I am wrong, then what is the explanation other than the one that I have given from Islamic eschatology, which explains the phenomenon of the emergence of modern Western civilization as a unique civilization in human history? This part of the world never walked on the stage of history before. And suddenly this part of the world emerges and takes over the world. Hindu civilization, which is thousands of years old. And the Hindus are proud of their civilization and the accomplishments of their civilization. They have a great philosophy in Hinduism. And yet this civilization takes Hinduism and sends it into the museum. The Chinese have a proud civilization, great civilization. And the Chinese are proud of their civilization. And yet this modern Western civilization takes Chinese civilization, send it to the museum. All civilization, and including Islamic civilization, are now sent to the museums of history. Who said that? Arnold Toynbee, one of the greatest of British historians. That's what, in which book? That's right. Civilization on Trial. You must read that book. And so now, if you say I'm wrong, tell me, what is the explanation of the emergence of modern Western civilization with an obsession for the Holy Land? What is it that explains the emergence of Pax Britannica? And what it is that explains the emergence of Pax Americana? A Pax Britannica in which the British pound rules the world. A Pax Americana in which the US dollar becomes the international currency. I don't have time to proceed even further in with this, so this is my challenge to them. Come forward and explain. Now then, we have always held the view that the third stage, which we consider to be Pax Judaica, will not occur until the Great War takes place. And we said the proof for this is that the passage from Pax Britannica to Pax Americana required the First World War and the Second World War. And so I was waiting for the Great War to take place, and only then would Pax Judaica replace Pax Americana. So why have I changed my views? Iqbal says only stones don't change. So I have the right to change my views if I feel I want to change. Yeah. I came to the conclusion that I was wrong and that Pax Judaica has arrived when I saw the evidence that Israel is defying the whole world. That Israel does not care, even if public opinion around the whole world turns against Israel. Israel is going to proceed, and Israel is going to either kill all the Palestinians, if they have to be killed, or kill those that they can kill and enslave the rest. And that Israel is not going to allow Iran to continue to have a nuclear program, even if it means bringing down the whole of the Middle East and the catastrophe. Because if Iran blows up all the oil installations in the Gulf, the price of oil, and if Iran blocks the Straits of Hormuz in a war with Israel, the price of oil will escalate to such an extent that the world economy will collapse. So when I saw Israel, which previously was always acting behind the curtain, pardese piche, always behind the curtain, acting secretly and never confessing, we did it. No. When I saw Israel changing her strategy now, and Israel speaking openly, plainly, clearly, publicly, yes, we're going to do it, announcing we're going to attack Iran before the attack took place. Who does that? If you want to launch an attack, you don't say it in advance. You do a surprise attack. That's what military strategy is about. But Israel announced in advance, we're going to attack Iran. And Israel proceeded to attack Iran. And when Israel attacked Iran, Israel killed so many of the nuclear scientists. More than that, Israel killed the chief of staff of the Iranian armed forces in his own house. Israel killed the chief of the Revolutionary Guards in his own house. Israel had all the intelligence of where all these people were living. And Iran never took any steps. As Yasser Arafat used to be moving from house to house, never sleeping in the same house for 2 nights, not Yasser Arafat. But Iran remained sleeping in their own apartments and houses. Yeah? And when Israel bombed all these nuclear installations, bombing a nuclear installation could trigger off a nuclear explosion. What a reckless thing to do. And then the United States then supporting Israel in bombing Iran. These 2 things led me to the conclusion. Number 1, the continuing genocide in Gaza without any consideration for world public opinion, as though the Palestinians were cockroaches. They're not human beings. The way the Americans treated, the Europeans treated the Native Americans, killing them like the way you kill buffaloes. That's how they took over the United States of America. So that's the same thing Israel is doing. I realize that Pax Judaica has arrived. I can be wrong. And I always ask my audience, don't accept my view unless you're convinced that I'm correct. Because I respect your intellect. I want to encourage you to think. And if I can get you to think and to penetrate the world of knowledge in an independent way, and even to extend the frontiers of knowledge, my work is done. Secondly, I came to the conclusion that when the conquest of Constantinople takes place, then it may not be long before Dajjal appears in person. That the passage of time from the Great War to the conquest of Constantinople, only about 7 years. So why should the next one, from the conquest of Constantinople to the emergence of Dajjal, be 700 years? It doesn't make sense to me. So I came to the conclusion that the passage of time from the conquest of Constantinople to the emergence of Dajjal, and the passage of time from the Great War to the conquest of Constantinople, and the amount of time we now have left before the Great War takes place, is too short a time for Pax Judaica. When we compare a year with a month, with a week, it doesn't fit. So it makes more sense to recognize that Pax Judaica has commenced before the Great War has taken place. Good. This is why I changed my mind. But I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one with this thinking. I have to commend the French president, Macron. I have to commend the British Prime Minister, Stammer is his name? Yeah. I have to commend the European Union, which is now following France and Britain. That France and Britain have recognized, yes, this is Pax Judaica, and this is going to embarrass us. We're going to face a backlash in France and Britain which can sweep away our governments when Israel proceeds with the killing fields in Gaza, exterminating the Palestinians like cockroaches. That's coming. So what can we do? What can we do to what is called damage control, to save our regimes from the fury of public opinion in France and Britain and so on, with 3-4 million people marching in London when Israel starts killing more people? Israel just attacked a hospital and killed 7 journalists in the hospital, right there. About 200 journalists have already been killed in Israel. And Israel just keep on killing and killing and killing. If it's not against the law, perhaps we should get a bumper sticker in Birmingham. Israel, question mark. How many more must you kill, question mark. That's all. And have this bumper sticker spread all over Britain. The police might stop you, but when you go to court, you won't be charged because it makes no sense. They might want you to remove the sticker, but they can't stop because every time you remove one, 100 more comes up. Israel, question mark. How many more will you kill? That's enough. So, France and Britain, that is what I have has arrived. And if we don't do something, Netanyahu is going to take us on a ride, at the end of which our own people will destroy us. Our own people will rise up against us. What do we do? Answer? It's called damage control. Macron has announced that in September, which is next month, France is going to use the General Assembly of the United Nations to recognize the State of Israel. Diplomatic value, but still the propaganda value is of some substance. And Stama has announced that unless Israel changes a policy, which is possible, that Britain will do the same as France has done. This is not compassion for the Palestinian people. This is damage control. Trying to build an insurance will save you. Killing. You're not swept away by the public opinion. Now then, we come to the next question. If Pax Judaica has arrived, then what comes next? What kind of world do we expect with a Pax Judaica? We've known what the world was like in Pax Britannica. That's your study. That's your studies, yeah. You've known what the world was like in Pax Americana. It was a blessing from Allah that after I did my master's degree in philosophy, and after I completed my studies at the Alimia Institute of Islamic Studies in Pakistan, it was a blessing of Allah that I went to study international relations at 2 universities. Because international relations is more valuable for me in the study of Islamic eschatology than any other subject you can find. So I want to recommend to you, those of you who want to become scholars, that you should devote some time to the study of international relations. Now then, what comes next? We don't have long to wait. Only next month we have to wait, when the General Assembly of the United Nations takes place in New York. And Macron announces French recognition of Israel. And Stama recognizes British recognition of Israel. I don't think it's far-fetched for us to anticipate that there'll be an avalanche of other countries who previously were siding with Israel, that they will recognize that they also must engage in damage control. And so you'll get a huge majority of the United Nations, member states of the United Nations, now extending recognition to Israel. This will do 2 things. This will make it clear to the supporters of the Zionist state that the United Nations cannot survive. They have to get rid of the United Nations, because the United Nations has now become no longer an asset to Israel, but a liability. Remember that it's because of the United Nations that Israel was born. Yes, it's because of the United Nations. They created the United Nations in 1945. So that Israel could be born in 1948 and be recognized in Israel, in the United Nations. So number one, what comes after is a very great likelihood that next month there'll be an avalanche of states in the United Nations who will now be recognizing Israel as a state. And that implication will be that the United Nations and other international organizations which follow the General Assembly, the way of the General Assembly, will now become a liability to Israel rather than an asset. And they will then move towards dismantling the United Nations. How to dismantle the United Nations? Simple. Stop supporting them with money. That's all. The United States will be the first to come out. We're not going to fund the United Nations anymore. And once the Western world starts funding the United Nations, that's it, it's finished. Good, number two. What comes after? Putin in Russia okay, recognition of Palestine, not recognition of Israel, sorry, my mistake. Recognition of Palestine in the General Assembly next month. When you go, this is what happens there. Now then, Putin in Russia has confirmed. He said, we believe that they robbed Trump of the election in 2020. Trump said, I was robbed. He was supposed to win the election and won instead. And there was a big insurrection in the United States. And they took Capitol Hill and so on. And Trump has not forgiven them for that. Trump wants revenge. That is his mission now, revenge. But he has to put some honey on the poison. Yeah. He has to conceal it. But when Trump lost the election in 2020, Europe celebrated. And Europe spent the next 4 years rubbing in that we support Biden. We don't want Trump. And they maligned Trump in every way, and they did everything they could possibly do, winning the election in 24. In fact, Britain sent people to support Biden in the election. And the Trump team had to complain of British people going to Britain. So when Trump won the election in 24, it's now time. And Trump is seeking revenge to Ukraine. And he's doing it skillfully. He's embarrassing Europe. So Europe says it's time for us to hit back. And that's what's coming now. The next month, in the General Assembly, the United States is probably going to be left alone supporting Israel. And all the rest of the world will be recognizing Palestine. And that is the way Europe will embarrass Trump. Okay. Now then, for the but about Israel, what is Pax Judaica going to look like? What does the future hold in store? First of all, for the Palestinians, Israel cannot rule the world unless Israel is ruling the Holy Land. Israel has to establish a rule over the Holy Land. and the Palestinians are in the Holy Land. So Israel has to either get the Palestinians, throw them out, throw them in the desert. And if you can't do that, and if you can't kill all of them, then what's the alternative? Answer, slavery. Legal slavery is abolished. But our prophet prophesied that there is slavery in the end time. That's the prophecy. He said a slave woman will give birth to her mistress. So while legal slavery is abolished, factual slavery will remain in the world. De facto slavery. And that has implications for the subject of milk al-yamin. But that's not my topic today. So now then, what the world can expect from Pax Judaica is, number one, the extermination of as many Palestinians as can be exterminated. Number two, the export of as many Palestinians as can be exported. And number three, the enslavement of those who remain. That you are actually slaves, de facto slavery. Number two, this is Pax Judaica within the Holy Land. But what about Pax Judaica outside of the Holy Land in the rest of the world? Israel is small. United States is big. The United States could have 900, 1,000 bases all over the world. But Israel doesn't have those numbers. So how will Israel establish and impose Pax Judaica on the rest of mankind? How can little Israel rule the rest of the world? Answer, Jesus said, Nabi Isa alayhi salam said, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Or is it the poor? Which one? Shazia? Which one is it? The meek or the poor? Oh, you've not studied the gospel there. Nobody told me? Huh? The meek. Blessed, you were there in the lecture in, yeah, that's right. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. But Pax Judaica says no. Blessed are the rich, for they shall inherit the earth. So the strategy is to use the rich to control mankind. And if you are rich and you don't fall in line, we'll make you poor. And they have the means to do it. So all around the world now, mankind can expect to become poorer and poorer until you reach destitution. I have found, because I earn my livelihood as a writer, it's a modest livelihood. And I've noticed the sales of books going down and down because people don't have the money to buy books. More and more people say, Sheikh, I want to get a set of books, but I want to pay in installments. I say, sure. So I am seeing the evidence that the noose is tightening around the neck. And those who have wealth, those who have money, will have to serve Israel, otherwise you're going to lose your wealth. So this is the strategy of Pax Judaica. For blessed are the rich, for they shall inherit the earth. Um, the next part of the agenda of Pax Judaica is located in the monetary system. That in the first stage of the three parts of dajjal, they move towards paper money in place of gold and silver. This is with Pax Britannica. And the British sterling pound then emerged with the Bank of England, 1776, I think the Bank of England was established, and paper money came into being. And they used the British pound to establish their financial rule over the world through monetary economics. And then in the second stage of Dajjal, the US dollar replaced the sterling pound. And that transfer took place in help me somebody? What year he said? No. Come on, somebody. What year? What year did the transfer take place from the British pound to the US dollar? Come on, somebody. No lunch for you. Are you guessing? 1944 at the Bretton Woods Conference. I'm disappointed. You got homework to do if you want to become scholars, okay? You got homework to do if you want to become scholars. Get a book on the Bretton Woods Conference of 1944 and see what happened at the Bretton Woods Conference. We don't have the time to teach that for you today. And so the US dollar replaced the British pound in 1944 as the international currency. And 1945, the UN was born, and then the International Monetary Fund was born. Have you studied the Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund? Huh? If you want to study what is riba, and riba is in the Quran, you better study the Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund. The International Monetary Fund says, what Allah made halal, we have made haram. Is that? You don't believe me? And if you make haram what Allah made halal, what is that? Shirk. Yes, shirk. They don't teach this in the Darul Uloom. They don't teach this in the Darul, and yet they shut the doors of the masjid on me. Let's go on. This Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund says that the use of gold as money is now prohibited. So what Allah made halal, because dinar is in the Quran, dirham is in the Quran, okay? What Allah made halal, they have made haram. The reason why they prohibit the use of gold as money is because if real money comes into the market, bogus money will collapse. All right? So now that Pax Americana is in irreversible decline, and the US dollar is in a hospital, an intensive care unit, it should have collapsed already. What comes next? Answer: a world of money in which we no longer have all of these different currencies, British pound and euro and Pakistani rupee and Bangladeshi taka and Malaysian ringgit. All of these will disappear. And there'll be only one currency. And it won't be money you can touch. No, I can't touch the money. You know, you can't even see the money. Tell me, who will accept money you can't touch, money you can't see, except those who have the intellectual acumen of a donkey? Huh? Am I right or wrong? You have to have the intellectual acumen of a donkey to welcome the cashless world and to say this is progress. Money you can't touch, money you can't see, digital money. So there'll be only one currency coming. Only one. And controlled by, of course, Israel and her friends. And that is the rope around the neck of all of mankind. If you are resisting Israel, you can lose your money. You have an account, but you can't access the account. You have an account, they block it using some fig leaf of excuse. And you go to court, you can't get through. They control the courts. So you have money and you can't even buy a chapati. That's coming up. And when they block your account, you come to me, Sheikh, tell me what to do. It's so funny. Sheep and cattle who refuse to think. So what is coming now is not only the rich ruling over the mankind on behalf of Israel, but also a monetary system of digital money through which Israel will continue to rule the world. But in addition to this, Israel also has other agendas for Pax Judaica to prepare for when Dajjal appears in human form, in order for him to stand up in Jerusalem and to say, Ana al-Masih, I am the Messiah. Israel has to expand to encompass the biblical frontiers of the Holy Land. The Torah says that the Holy Land extends from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. The Quran and Hadith does not support that. So Israel has to take control. First of all, you take control by proxy, and then you take actual control. That's why the regime in Iraq had to go, Saddam Hussein. They had to attack it. That's why Assad had to go. So you can get a client state in Syria. You now have a client state in Syria. You have a government in Syria which is in submission to Israel, whereas Assad's government was not in submission to Israel. The idiots can continue to contest my views, but they're idiots. My language is harsh for them. Yes, I know, my language is harsh. So now then, we can now expect an incremental approach to the expansion of Israel's frontiers. I am not the expert to tell you how they will proceed. The military expert has to do that. The expert in demographics has to do that, not me. All I can say is that Pax Judaica is now going to show us an incremental expansion, stage by stage, which will expansion of Israel's frontiers. Number two, that the holy state of Israel established by Nabi Dawood and Nabi Sulaiman was a monarchy by divine wisdom. That they were prophets, but they were also kings. King Solomon and King David. And so Dajjal, in order to credibly claim to be the Messiah, will have to transform Israel from a secular state, secular democracy, into a monarchy. And so we have to anticipate an Israel with a king. And finally, the question, what do we expect from Pax Judaica, is that Israel has to rebuild the temple. So there might be perhaps a convenient earthquake, which will cause Masjid al-Aqsa to collapse. And then Israel rebuilds the temple before Dajjal appears in person.